After 25 years of marriage, my wife and I have collected a lot of sayings, a lot of inside jokes, things that we just say to each other, and we're like, that takes us back to a time and a place. And there's one that she knows very well, and it goes like this. Vadim, возьми трубку. Dima, возьми трубку. So what is that? We lived in Pittsburgh, and we were just getting out of college. I had my first job. Lisa was still in school. And we lived in Squirrel Hill. And some people may remember Squirrel Hill unfortunately hit the national news 5 years ago with the Tree of Life Synagogue shooting. Terrible. And after a few weeks of work, I reached out to local Jewish community center. And I wanted to connect with the local Russian community. I studied a lot of Russian in college for no particular reason at the end of the day, but I wanted to keep using it. And you could say I was doing it just to help, but I wanted to reconnect and get a Slavic fix. So sure enough, I connected and I got an ESL role, and I was teaching English as a second language to the Russian immigrant community. They're all over 70. They didn't remember a thing from 1 week to the next, but it was tons of fun, just tons of fun with this group of characters. But the coordinator called me a couple days in and said, there's a family that just moved into town, and they have a son, and he's in a wheelchair. He's having a hard time connecting, would you want to just go and connect with the family? And I said, yeah, great. So I went over and I met the family, and that's when I met Vadim, who was in his early 20s with muscular dystrophy in a wheelchair, his mom, his dad, grandma, babushka, and his two younger, identical twin, beautiful, exotic sisters that all were this just really interesting family. And got to know Vadim on the first visit and learned that they moved from Ukraine, Kharkov, Ukraine, and that life was getting too tough, bringing Vadim down, Dad carrying him down from the 5th floor, up and down. There was no lift in the building. It was time to come, and they came to Pittsburgh. We talked about this, we talked about that, what we might have in common, and it just turns out, hey, let's play chess. That's something that we can do together. Vadim was very limited, and he was a sweet boy, a couple years older than me, but just like a little boy, and just a heart of gold. He loved Louis L'Amour, and that's how he learned English, reading Louis L'Amour westerns over in Ukraine, and he loved to play chess. And he played chess with this little back scratcher that he'd reach out, and he'd kind of point on what piece he wanted moved, but he was all there. He was a great kid. So Vadim возьми трубку means every time it called the house, his grandma babushka would answer, and that was her thing. She'd be yelling for him to pick up the phone. And it was so fun that we would I'd say, Lisa, here goes, I'm calling. And just hearing grandma with that Russian heavy Slavic, it was just a port into another world, and that just became something that we always said and say. They moved about 3 weeks after I met them, and they actually moved down the street from us. So they're actually closer, and they were neighbors. What do I remember? What are the big things looking back? I remember Vadim's mother taking me aside saying, he fell in love with the nurse when he came to the U.S. She gave him dignity. She was so kind to him, and his young 18, 19-year-old heart fell in love with her, and he was really heartbroken. I remember friends of friends were emigrating out of Ukraine one night, and they asked me to assist. And I remember going to the airport right around midnight, and 3 or 4 Ukrainian families, kind of like hot and tired and disheveled, coming into the U.S. for the first time and coming back with a dinner and vodka and cigarettes and beautiful tables full of plates and toasts all night with this old country friendship. I remember Vadim's mother, also kind of grim, but tell me he overheard the doctor one day say that in his condition he's not going to live past 30. Vadim called me often. I'm not saying he picked up the phone every time the phone rang, but that family became a very close part of our memory in Pittsburgh. Lisa and I left after 2 years and came back home to Lancaster. And I talked to Vadim here and there, but distance passed as we kind of were in separate areas. And one day I received a call from his mother, and Vadim had died. He very quickly got pneumonia, and in his condition, and he died just shortly of his 30th birthday. You know, the recap, when you're just trying to help, life lesson, even if half of that just trying to help is because you need a Slavic fix, or you just want to be involved, or you want to just add some strange to your life, that's where all the juice is. And that's what I learned from my time with Vadim.